Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wisdom Chat. I'm Phil Holdsworth of Aurum Gold, and my guest today is Alan Lazenby, who's the Managing Director of Lazenby's Financial Services. Alan, welcome to Wisdom Chat.
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Alan, just tell us a little bit about you and about your organisation and what you do.
Yes, I've been in finance for 26 years. I'm an independent financial advisor. I manage tens of millions of pounds of money for my clients under my company, Lazenby's Financial Services. We have a team of power planners and financial advisors that stop people worrying about money. Because it doesn't matter where you are on wealth, you will be worried. And the more money you have, the more worry that you're going to have about money. In fact, if you've got no money, you're just worrying that you haven't got money. But if you've got loads of money, then you're worried that you're going to lose it, especially as you get older.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Alan. I mean, that's an interesting point, because my question to you then is, what is money?
A lot of people think it's cash. People say, "Oh, it's sound as a pound," and the pound hasn't been sound for a very long time. So if we go into what, they use the phrase sound money, and it comes from the Roman era. And it comes from when the Roman soldiers would demand that they would be paid in silver. And to ensure they weren't being stitched up, as they eventually were by the Roman Empire, they put two coins together and they smacked them and it created a sound. A very high-pitched ping, which only silver and gold gives you. And that's where the phrase sound money comes from, because you could hear that it was real. And of course, when you put cheap base metals in, it gave a dull thud. So the Romans didn't just bite gold, but they prefer to ping it to give it the sound money. So money is sound money. So the pound used to be based on silver. And if you go back a long time ago, and you're of a similar age, Phil, so I know you'll know. But if you was to draw in the air a pound sign, you at your age will put two strikes through it. Everybody else under the age of 40 will put one strike across it. And if they look at their keyboard, they will see a pound with one strike, and they'll see a dollar sign next to it on a number 4 with a one strike through it. Both of these symbols used to have two strikes. The two strikes, and the last time it was on the blue £5 note, was where you could take that £5 into the Bank of England and they would give you £5 of silver. As soon as that two strikes went off, it came off any type of metal standard and it became what's called fiat or fake. Or a promissory note. Another way of looking at it is a debt note.
Right.
So that's why the pound is called sterling abroad.
Right.
Because it was sterling silver.
Yeah.
So money is something that everyone sees as valuable. That is valuable in on itself, which means it doesn't require anything else to make it valuable.
Yeah.
And the only thing that matches that, where internationally you've got an international price, is precious metals. So gold will be gold 5,000 years from now.
Yeah.
Gold was money 5,000 years before, and that is real money. And governments over the years removed gold as the standard, which then allowed them to print money. And hence the problem we're in today. So if you've got paper money, you don't own anything. That is a debt note. And we haven't had real money for a long time. We've just got paper money, which isn't money at all. That's why it's fiat.
Yes. That's an interesting, I've never heard anybody talk about money in that way. And as you were talking, I was reminded of a book called The 30 Myths or The 30 Lies About Money by a chap called Peter Koenig, and it's all based on the premise that we project upon money what we, I suppose, in my words, desire. So if somebody's looking for happiness or security or choice or power, and there's a whole raft of them, then we kind of project it onto what we see as being money. But as you've described, it's a debt owed, and so therefore we're projecting something of that we value onto something that actually can't return that to us. And it's interesting when I think about that and look at the whole area of how we perceive money to be. It's almost as if we're giving money a power that it doesn't have, or a value that we've actually set on it that it doesn't have. And often people say to me, well, money gives us happiness, and that's often talked about an awful lot. And I say, well, how much money do you need to be happy? And that stumps people, because they think, well, I've never been asked that question. And actually, yeah, how much do I need? Whatever they come up with, it will never be enough. As we were saying earlier, enough is not enough. So it's interesting.
And they're not dealing with money mostly. They think what they have is money, and what they have is debt.
Yeah.
And not realizing that isn't money.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. The media and everybody else says what money is, and there's a few very clever people who know what money is, but they don't share it with the rest.
And therein lies some of the problems, isn't it? In so much as the people with the knowledge, it's almost like power to them in a sense.
Yeah, knowledge is power, absolutely. Yeah,
and I'm not pointing the finger at any one group, body, or person, but that is just a fact of the matter. But
it's a matter of if you understand money's history, where it come from, then you know where it's going. So when people can see the decline of the Roman Empire, the Roman Empire started to decline when they started mixing their silver coins with base metals. And it wasn't long after they did that no soldiers wanted to fight for them. And they got away with it for a period of time until, in the end, it was so worthless that the empire fell. And people think it was to do with war. And it was the Roman Empire fell because of debt and because they spent everything, and they debased their currency. And what we're going through at the moment is a debasement of currency. And again, we use words all the time, and we don't understand what the words mean. So if you know what currency is, the real word, what it means, then you can, and where it came from, then you start to understand money. But until you understand the use of words, like the word bank, the word currency and deposit accounts, and what do these words mean? When you know what the words mean, then you can start to unravel what money is. But we use words, and we don't know what. All the time we use words, we don't know what they mean.
Yeah, it's interesting that, because I was just thinking then, if you look at what's been happening, so we've been through the pandemic, and it's still around in a sense, but life is being rebuilt, and we're beginning to sort of move on. However, lots of changes have taken place, not just to do with that, but to do with what's important to people. And so, for example, during the pandemic, we started to use cash less and less. It was more contactless. We're dealing with numbers on a computer screen as opposed to something tangible in your hands. And with that in mind, then we started to see the growth in terms of the value of data. which is another thing. And I just wonder whether there's a shift in terms of if we're going more and more digital, what other things will play a key role in how we I don't know how we progress as a society in what we class as assets and wealth and riches.
But again, it's this. It's knowing. It's like a piece of a puzzle, and again, if you're missing major chunks of the puzzle, you won't be able to see the full picture at all. So what you're looking at is why go digital? Why is it all digital? And the reason being because they've created so much currency, and again, you need to know what currency is.
Yeah.
They've created so much of it that now they don't want to get to a situation where you see in your hand what you're spending. Okay, so going back a few years when we were lads, you get a triple pack of Mars bars for probably 10, 15p, and they were big and they were tasty.
Yeah.
Now it's over £1, God knows what, for a Mars bar. It's tiny, and the quality of the ingredients is as bad as you can possibly hope for. And that's because it's called shrinkflation. So they've shrunk the product to keep the price as low as they can, and now they've hit the lowest price, and then they put the worst ingredients in they can get away with.
Yeah.
And now the prices happen to go up, and to hide from the public how bad it is, they don't want you handling cash, because when you handle money, you've got a wad in your hand, and if you've got a note that we know this from you've got £20, that used to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
You won't even cover your taxi fare now. So they don't want you if you see it in your hand, you notice how destroyed the currency is.
Yeah.
So this is why that's happening. But fortunately, we've come to the end of fiat. Fiat is now within a few months of ending. So there is a new system coming through, and there is a battle of systems, as it were, that's coming through.
Right. Yeah. Tell us about this system, Alan. And I know some of our listeners might be wondering, I've never heard anybody mention currency as understanding what does currency mean. Just in terms of this new system and currency, just to open that up a little.
So best to explain a little bit about history. I mean, we can go back to ancient Cape, where banking came from. Well, let's go to Venice. That's only about 500 years ago. So you have the merchants, and water merchant, okay, mermaid. They were on the riverbanks, and that's where they did their trade. Yeah? If you watch Game of Thrones, you remember there was trading, and the insurance guys were on the deck, on the banks of the river. So that's where the word bank comes from. And what you're dealing with is a world of water that is in all your daily lives, but you don't notice it because you don't concentrate on words. So on your computer, you have docking ports, but you ignore them and you just say the word without thinking it has a water connotation. So the banks, everything was traded through them based on what's called the law of water. Okay, so when a river runs fast, it's not running because of gravity, it's running because of current. And all currents end up in the sea. So hence the flow of money, cash flow, runs through a river via a current into the sea, hence currency. Banks, as in bank deposits, is when a river breaks its banks and leaves high quality deposits so things can grow. Okay? So everything is based on what's called the law of water. Hence, you've got to keep your head above water, don't become bankrupt, look out for the loan sharks, everything's for sale, yeah? So I know it's annoying when you realize that's why we have worship, relationship, citizenship. Yeah, it's all based on water, and hence the flow of money. So the problem is once you understand that side, you can start to understand the rest of it. So banks wanted to create more money. And what they first started out was they would hold your gold, which was real money, and they would charge you for the protection of the gold. Then they realized that nobody was coming collecting the gold, it just sat there. So they then started to lend out money on it, the IOUs, promissory notes. Yeah, what's a promissory note? Fiat. Yes. So then they handed out currency based on the deposits that they held.
Yeah.
Then they realized that, hang on, no one really is ever coming to pick up their gold. It's sat there. And we can do a thing called fractionalization. So what we can do is we can multiply the amount of money that we lend up to 10 times our value. And nobody will come and take the money out of the bank. But if there's a bank run, they've already lent that money out at least 10 times.
Yeah.
So that is how the banking system works. When you understand how the banking system works, the worst thing in the world for a bank is to tie the money to a tangible asset. And what's happened is that we went off the gold standard, I think it was 1931 for us and 1933 for America. Then I think it was Roosevelt who put a law in 1934 which forced, under threat of fine and imprisonment, all Americans to give their gold up. And it was illegal still into the 70s for Americans to even hold gold. And then we had the Bretton Woods agreement in 1944, which is a hotel, Bretton Woods, where the Allies got together and they agreed that America should be the standard for currency in the world, the dollar. And they hold most of the gold reserves at that time. America is by far the richest country, had most of the gold reserves. And they squandered it. They squandered it on wars, the Vietnam War, they squandered it on social projects. They just spent it. Many other countries were very upset with America and started to say, we don't want your dollars, we want our gold back. So in 1971, Nixon said, oh dear, these horrible gold brokers are causing all sorts of trouble. So we are now temporarily coming off the gold standard. And then you have the OPEC problem, the 70s financial crash, and the 400% increase in the price of oil. Oddly enough, then it became what's called the petrodollar. So if you wanted to buy or sell oil in this world from 1971, it had to be in dollars. And this cycle, this promise, has allowed America to rack up 30 trillion in debt, based on everybody doing as they're told by the largest power in the world to buy oil using dollars. And just recently, that has ended. And now the homogeny of the dollar has ended with the sanctions against Russia. And now the Russians are selling oil in rubles, not dollars. And they're selling gas in rubles. And Saudi Arabia has done a deal with China to sell their oil in yuan. So there's many, many things that nobody's talking about, which what's happening is all those dollars are coming home to roost. Japan has sold, for the first time, Japan has sold $60 billion of US debt. And they for ever since World War II, they've bought American debt. Now they are selling it to protect their own currency. And I heard only yesterday that commodity brokers for food and from everything else across the world are having a new piece of software set in to allow them to select whichever currency is the strongest they want to use on the day.
Yes.
Trade apples, wheat, any commodity. And therefore, again, there'll be more dollars in circulation, but less people using them across the world.
Right.
And that is coming back like a homing missile to America. So this is there are lots of things that are going on at the moment, have that are a distraction from the really important thing, which is hyperinflation.
Yeah.
You only get hyperinflation if your paper, you're using currency and not money.
Yeah.
Because money, there's a limit.
Yeah.
There's no limit to currency.
So just taking those points then, Alan, and we probably need to sort of wrap up on this one, but just very quickly, something I said earlier about data being, I suppose, in a way like a commodity. The value of data has exponentially increased, and there's almost like a war of gathering data globally, and we've constantly hear about Russians hacking into systems, and whether that's true or not, I really don't know. But there's clearly something going on, and data is playing a very sort of vital part in how we trade, on a global scale, and it's no wonder that individuals are a little bit sort of cagey when we're starting to use more and more technology.
I think it's a lack of the right sort of data. So there's a lot of information out there, and most of it's a distraction from your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And most of it has no value whatsoever to you personally, but you get absorbed in it. And what is important is often missed with the chaos of noise out there. So this is obviously people like myself whose job it is to understand money, just look at money. And when you look and focus on one thing and one thing alone, more information in that subject comes to bear. So you see things. And that means you're not being distracted by everything else, because all you then see is the money, as you would do with anything else that you look at. So if you look at products, you'll find products, but if you look at money, you'll find the source of money, where it comes from, who's using it, and what the impact is. And this lack of information out there means that people are not aware of the erosion, although they're starting to see it in their standard of living. And that comes from too many of these bits of paper floating around for simple purposes.
Alan, that has been very, very interesting. I know we've come to the end of our time, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me. This is a vast topic, and with everything that's going on around the world at the moment, I know people are being distracted, but there are very definite and tangible things that people are experiencing, even in our own country at this moment in time, that are challenging right now, and no doubt people will be looking for answers, and I'm sure what you've just been talking about will be of interest to many. So thank you so much for that, Alan. Just to ask you, Alan, how can anybody find you?
Well, they can go on our website, which is www.lazenby'sfs.co.uk, or just type in Alan Lazenby Leeds, and that'll probably be just as quick. But we've got a lovely website, and we've got client testimonial videos on there, so you can see how we operate.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Alan. I really appreciate you coming on Wisdom Chat. Lovely to chat with you.
Great. Thanks, Phil.